Hi everyone, welcome to another video in Excel tutorials. Today we'll be looking at formulas and functions. This is a continuation video. If you have not watched part 1 of formula and functions, you can go back to watch it so you understand better. So these formulas are used for analysis. You have the SUMIF, SUMIFs. We have the sum function. We have the if function. We have the SUMIF, SUMIF. We'll explain all of that stage by stage. So let's start with if function. Yeah, let's start with the if function. What does the if function do? The if function actually, see, let's do it here. If, see, it checks whether a condition is met and returns one value if true and another value if false. What does that mean? It checks maybe two numbers or two conditions. If the condition is true, it returns a value if true. The condition is false, it returns a value if false. For example, let's say we want to check if this particular number is greater than or less than 50,000. So first thing we do, if it asks us to select our logical test. A logical test is what we want to see, what we want to test. So it has three arguments. The test, what value should I return if it's true? What value should I return if it's false? That's what the if function asks you. So first of all, our logical test is J5, which is this cell, greater than 50,000. So look, greater than 50,000. If it's greater than 50,000, tell us yes. Let's lose value if true. We always put strings in quotation marks. Yes, that's the value if true. If it's greater than 50,000, tell us yes. If it's not, tell us no. Tell us a capital no. Then that's the value if false. Then we close it. Click enter. So you can see that this particular cell, J5, is not greater than 50,000. That's why it's telling us no. The same thing I did here for reference. If K5, which is here, K5 14,000, is greater than, what I did was, if it's greater than 15,000, say greater. If it's not, value if false is not greater. So you can see here we had not greater. I expand this, meaning that this K5, which is the value we're referencing, is less than 15,000. It's not greater than 15,000. That's what the if function does. It chooses one argument and tests to see, it gives a logical test to see if to bring out true, value if true, and the value if false. But what the ifs function does is like singular and plural in our basic English. So the if function brings out, deals with more arguments. Deals with more arguments, not just one argument. Deals with more arguments. For example, I'm asking now if in this formula I created, let's say, let me create it again. Ifs, just type in your ifs, select it, tap it in. A logical test, let's use 14,000, which is K5. K5. So it gives you logical test 1, value if one is true, it gives you different, and that multiple. That's what ifs function does. It deals with multiple logics. So if this one is greater than, is greater than 15,000, then give us the value true. Let's put T. Then the second logical test, if the same K value, no, let's use another column. Then if this one, yeah, can use two, that's why it's multiple. If this one is greater than 40,000, then give us F, which is false. Sorry. put that F in quotation marks, click enter. So it's a false. Why is it a false? Because, so let me explain it this way. What this does, is that it checks the first true condition and returns the value. It checks the first true condition. So if it checks this condition and it's true, it returns that. If it checks this condition and it's true, so it's the first true condition. That's what the if function does. It differs from the if end. It's the if end that checks for both conditions and returns it. But for if checks for the first true condition, you just go here. Let's say equals to if say checks whether one or more conditions are met and returns a value corresponding to the first true condition. That's what it usually does. So in this function, you can see that K5 is greater than 15,000. It's not, you can see this is K5. It's not greater than, so it cannot return a T. Now it goes to the second function and logical test and sees J5 is greater than 40,000. It checks, is this J5, is it greater than 40,000? Yes. So it returns F. So that's the first true. If I put in 10 conditions here, it looks at only the first true condition and returns the value. That's what the if function does. That's the if and the if function. The or function, what it does is that it returns a true if any of the logic is true. For example, let's say it checks whether any of the arguments are true and returns true or false. Returns false only if all arguments are false. What does it mean? It means if any of the condition comes out true, the or function return it as true. For example, let's look at this example I stated here. What we did here was or function is if 4 is 4 less than 3 or 4 greater than 5. If any of this is true, it will return true. 4 is not less than 3, yeah, and 4 is not greater than 5. So both of them, because the or functions, is both of them are wrong, it returns a false. That's why you see a false here. But if we edit this now and say 4 is greater than 3, or 4 is greater than 5, and click OK, it returns a true because one of the conditions is met. So an or function always returns a true if one of the conditions is met, or a false if both or all of them are false. It's different from the AND function. What the AND function does is that none of them must be false for it to return the true. We look at the explanation here. It checks whether all arguments are true and returns true if all arguments are true. It only returns true if all the arguments are true because it's a journey, it's end. So if any of the argument is false, the AND function will return false. For example, we have AND is 5 greater than 4 and 5 greater than 3. It says yes, 5 is greater than 4 and 5 is greater than 3. So I return true. If I had 5 is less than 4 here, it will return false because 5 is not less than 4. So AND means the two of them must always be right for it to return true. Or means any of them can be right for it to return true. We'll see how we'll use this in our future. Okay, let's see how we can use this to explain the SUMIF. What does the SUMIF function do? Let's go to the SUMIF function. The SUMIF function. We have the SUMIF, we have the SUMIFs. We have the COUNTIF, we have the COUNTIFs. Same as the average if and average ifs. So it's a combination of the sum and if function. It adds the cells specified by a given condition or criteria. That's what the SUMIF does. In simple explanation, what it means is sum the value of this if we are looking at this. For example, let me type this in. I can say sum the value of the total cells if I am in the category of telephone. So give me the total sales of those of the categories telephone, or give me total sales from the West. Premium example you can use SUMIF for. Give me, your manager just says, give me the total expenses from all customers from the West, or from all salesperson in the West. So these are the kind of examples I can use SUMIF. So how do we do that? So it has three arguments in SUMIF: the range, the criteria, and the sum range. What is the range? The range is where does the category you're looking for stay? For example, you're looking for the sum of the total expenses of a particular category called telephone. So the range of that telephone will be the category where what we are looking for is. The range of categories where it is. For example, now we're looking for telephone in category. So the range now is category. So what we will do is, first thing we input is the range. So we're looking for telephone in this range. So we can select, click here, Control Shift down, and select our range. So now that's our range. Our range is from B4 to B61. Then we put a comma. Then it goes to the criteria. What criteria are we looking for? The criteria we're looking for is this, which is telephone. Anything can be here, maybe copying, supplies, rent, but for now we're looking for telephones. When you select telephone, you can put a comma. Then what are we looking for? We're looking for the sum of the value. This is where you put what you're looking for. Maybe it's the total expenses, maybe it's the total bonus, anything you want. Maybe it's the total sales in March. Anything you want to sum up for that particular criteria is what you select here. So you click on here, Control Shift down, selected your sum range. What you want it to sum for you. Then you click on close bracket and enter. So you can see for telephone, just normal telephone, that is the SUMIF. We have summed the total expenses for the category telephone using the SUMIF function. If we say let's try it out, let's see what we can do. If you click on here, select here, you can do a Control Shift L and it gives us our filter. Yeah, that adds filter in case you should know. So we can do, let's filter for telephone. What do we have here? 9780 for telephone. Let's filter here for telephone. Click OK. You can see total sales for telephone. These are all the telephones. Telephone. So we can summarize this. When you get here, you can see, look down here, you see the sum 9780, which is sum of selected cells. You can see the total sales for telephone 9780, which is the same thing. Clear our filter, select all, click OK. You can see it here 9780. That's how the SUMIF works. Instead of you to be doing your filter, you can just use the formula and get it straight. Then you can also do this. So what this does is that it has shifted it from telephone now, which was in I6. If you look at the formula bar here, you can see it was in I6, and now we shifted it to I7. I7 is supplies. Look for supplies too. You're going to see the values are correct. But what this now does is that what we need to do, so it doesn't give you a wrong value, is that we need to lock our range. How do we lock our range, making it an absolute value? How do we do that? Come to the value here. We have a B1 to C1. We don't want it to move, else Excel will move. What it does, if you click on supplies and you click on the formula, you can see our range has shifted here. It's now counting from F5 because Excel actually wants to be going down. Now it's counting from F5. Since it saw B5, shifted to F5. You can see same thing here. You can see this one started from F6, which makes it not correct. So what we want to do is to lock those ranges. How do we lock it? Go to the first one, click on there to have F4, log that, log this, log this, log this. Now, sorry, let's log that again. Log this, log, log this, click enter. So when we drag it down now, the range doesn't move. The range doesn't move. You see, it's still F4 to F61, still F4 to F61. You can see from here, it's not moved again. So that's how we do our sum if. We know the sum. So for now, this is for rent, this is for supplies, this is for telephone, and the rest. So what does the sum ifs do? The sum ifs is the, I would say, the plural of sum if. Let me just make it like that so you understand where I'm coming from. So we can see what does the sum ifs do. It adds the cells specified by a given set of conditions or criteria. So see, if in sum ifs, let's type it in sum if, we can only know the sum of total expenses if we have telephone. But what if a manager says, okay, what is the sum of telephone in only West? Now it has given us two conditions, or let's call it two criteria. So we have to know the sum of total sales for telephone, then not just telephone in the West. So that's when we use the sum if, because we now have two criteria. What we do now is in sum if it actually in some ifs it actually changes the way we input the character and the argument. First of all, have the sum range. Yeah, the sum range gives us what we want to sum. In the sum if we actually enter the range first. But in the sum ifs we start with the sum range. And what's the sum range? Is the total expenses. Click, put a comma there. The next thing is the criteria one. What's the criteria one? Telephone. Select telephone. Criteria range. I mean criteria range one. We're looking for the criteria range one, the criteria. So we're looking for category, which is this. Is the criteria range one. Come to our formula bar, put a comma. What you're looking for inside there, we're looking for telephone. So select this telephone. You put comma. It asks us our criteria range 2. What's a criteria range 2? We're looking for the division. So we come to division, select it, go down to our formula bar, put a comma. What are we looking for in division? We're looking for the West. Select West here. Select West here. That's our criteria range. That's our criteria 2. If we have a lot of criteria, you can keep putting it. But since we have only 2 criteria now, just click enter. So now we see we have 2,200. 2,200. Let's go lock our cells. Let's go lock our cells. So when we drag it down, it doesn't move. F4, 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 4. Only the ranges are what we are giving the absolute, and we click enter. So if we want to know how many telephone was sold in the West, so we have 2,200. If we go there, let's do a quick lookout. Select the West. Okay, then we select telephone. Okay, you can see here 2,000. Only 1,200 is total expenses, which is the same thing. We clear the filters. Clear filter. Go now, you see it's 2,200. Exactly what we had. You can actually drag that to get us for the south of supplies. We had 2,425. For east, for the rent in east, we have 24,000. So that's how we use sum and sum if. So now we'll be looking at count if. Just like the sum if, the count if counts instead of sum. It counts the criteria in that particular, it counts the number of criteria that we are looking for, if we look count if, it counts the number of cells within a range that meets the given condition. So COUNTIF just counts the number of cells instead of summing something. It counts, let's say, it counts how many people paid in a particular region and all those things. So let's try it and see what it gives us. Count if, let's say our range is our range is category. Yeah, so we want to count each of the category, each of them, maybe a particular category, sorry. So how many did a particular category come out? So we count, say our category range, select it, Control Shift down. Then it has selected B1 to B14. Let's log that up with F4, get a comma. What we want to count is telephone. Yeah, telephone, click on telephone, click enter. It has counted that there are only 4 telephone cells in the whole of that range. So it counts if it's telephone. So if we go down here and do a Control Shift L to put our filter, click here and select telephone, select telephone. Okay, and see that telephone is 1, 2, 3, 4 for telephone. That's what COUNTIF does. Let's go here to clear it. Like filter from category. So that's why you can see 4 here. So it counts all the category if it's telephone. That's what it does. It counts the category if it's telephone. For example, if we had, okay, let's drag it down since you have locked it. We drag it down, you see supplies. There are 4 supplies, there are 4 rents. But for copying, you can see for copying, I think we had 14. Let's see copying, how many copying are there. I think that doesn't issue that formula. Let's see what we had there. We had A4 to A61. Oh, it was calculating A. I think I moved the data, that's why. So it's not supposed to be A. The formula H5, even selected H5, which is what? Okay, it counted not. Okay, this counts not. Okay, I see. So what this does is that this formula was counting the knots in the division. So how many knots were in this division? Or how many of the cells came from the not division? So that's why you see 14. So we go down here, let's escape, click on here, we see the not, and I think, okay, so that gives us 14, which is exactly what was counted there. Yep. So that's what we got for that count if. Same as some ifs, count ifs also takes into consideration the plural, that's the multiple criteria. So we had here equal to count ifs. So take it down. So the criteria 1, we are counting for criteria 1 range, telephone in category, criteria range 1. Yeah, I'll select that, put a comma, select the criteria as telephone. Yeah. So if we want to count telephone in just the east, telephone in just the east, we have to put our criteria range 2, which is our division. Select it, put a comma, then we select west, click enter. So now you can see that there's only 1 telephone in the west. Actually check that. Let's first of all filter the west, see, and check how many telephone in the west, telephone cells, and see it's only one. And I think that's the only place telephone is. Let's see. Let's clear filter from here. Clear filter from here. Okay, it's only one telephone and it's in the east. And there's no other telephone if you look at the data. Yep, that's why. But for the rest, you can, let's say, let's use this. Okay, this is not copying. This number of copyings in the north, one copying in the north. If we drag this down, so quite all of them are just one. Okay, there is telephone in the south. Okay, that was east. Looking at this, so we have one of them each places, one telephone, one telephone. Let's say we copied telephone. Let's just do a little drag down telephone. You can see now in the east, then we change here to, let's copy this telephone and put it here so that now you can see we have 7 telephones. Escape. And so you have telephones in the east. Our criteria here, we have telephones in the east, and it's giving us 7. If you come here to count it, all the things we've copied, there are 7 telephones in the east. So that's just to show you that our formulas are working properly. So for average if, quite the same thing as our sum if. Instead of sum, we used average. So for average if, we just do our average if our criteria is, our range is telephone, our range is telephone. In the category, put a comma. Sorry, our range is not telephone. Oh, sorry. We do average if, our range is always a category. Pardon me. Click on enter too many arguments and enter something within. Okay, that's our range. Put a comma. Yep, our criteria is now telephone. Yeah, then the average of telephone we are looking for in this way. Average expenses of telephone. Select here, click on here. Yeah. Average is 2445. 2445. 2445. So let's click here, select telephone, click OK. So now we have 4 telephones. Let's look for the average. If we select all of them, come down here, you see the average 2445, which is exactly what you got using our formulas. Yeah, so that's what we got. And actually do this to give it an absolute value, and we drag it down, and all the value comes out well. Same with our average is, we use it for multiple criteria and multiple criteria range. It's equals to average if, we select our average range is our value, place a comma, our criteria range 1, criteria range 1 is our range, which is category. The category is a criteria range 1. Criteria range 1, put a comma. What are we looking for in category? We are looking for the telephone, which is here. Our criteria range 2 is division. Select it, put a comma. What are we looking for? We're looking for the west here. So we click here, or click enter. What that does is that it tells us the average sales of telephones in the west. It's pretty simple. What you can do now is give an absolute value for all of our ranges. It doesn't shift when we move them. Click enter. So when we move this, it gives us what we want. So that's for the functions you need to know that will always come in handy in Excel. The other thing we're going to look at is if and, if or, XOR. We're going to look at those three before we go to fill in our tax 2 sheets. Yeah. So for if and, use if and if you want to test the condition for two things and you want conditions for two logic, and you want the two logic to be answerable by an end statement to give you the value of end. For example, if this and this is correct, give me true. Example, if Matthew is a boy and Matthew is more than 15 years old, give me true. So that's what the if and condition does. So pretty much how we use it is say if and end. So in Excel, you will not see if and directly. Let's see, but it's a combination of two logics. So that's how we use it in Excel. We use the if and you bring the end. So this using the two logic, if and, that's how it's used in Excel. So now let's test. Let's look at it in Excel. Let's see, equal to, if we tap it in, then we tap the end function. So that's how we use it in Excel. If this and this, you can see the way I use it. If you go back to my example where I used it, see it here. So but let's write a new one for West and telephone. West and telephone. No, let's say, yeah, West and telephone, the values we're going to use. Let's say equals to, if tapping and tapping, this value is greater than 10,000 and this value is greater than 2,000. Close your brackets. That's our logical test now. What do we want? A true if it is, or a false if it's not. So what this does is that it tests the two conditions now to see if J6, which is 9,780, is greater than 10,000. It's 10,000 that's supposed to be here. Okay. If J6 is greater than 10,000 and K6 is greater than 2,000, give us a true, else give us a false. So with this, click enter. Yes. Yeah. So why this is false is that, I remember we said in our end condition, if in our end function, if both of them are not true, to always give you a false. For end function, both of them have to be true. Both of them have to be true for it to give you a true, else to give you a false. So in this condition, we have seen that J6 is not greater than 6,000, 10,000, and K6 is not greater than 2,000. But let's say we reduce the value now, that if J6 is greater than 1,000 and J6 is greater than 2,000, that should give us a true because both conditions have been met. So that's how we use the if and function. That's how we use the if and function. For the if or function, the same thing. If we drag it down here to tell us true, because this is greater than 1,000 and this greater than 2,000. So for the same for the if or, it works differently. Remember, in our or function, if any of them comes out true, it always gives us a true. For example, we use just like with the if or, we use if or. If or. If, we type in if, or, we type in or. So our logical test will be if this is greater than 10,000, which is not greater than, and this is less than, this is less than 2,000, which is not less than, close your comma, give us a T for true if the conditions are true, and give us an F for false if the conditions are false. Click enter. It will give us a false. Why? Because both of them are not correct, are not true. This J6 is not greater than 10,000, and K6 is not less than 2,000. But if we happen to change one of them, we happen to change one of them, let's say to 2,500 for K6, click enter to give us a true. Why? Because one of the conditions have been met. That's what happens with if or. We use it to find the condition if one condition has been met. So let's see how we use this in our task sheet 2. In our task sheet 2, we just have a little sample analysis we want to do to understand which solution sells for December 2025. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 salespersons. Their weekly sales week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4 in December. And we use what we have learned to see how we can answer these questions. So we'll start with our totals. You have to know the total sales of each salesperson. That's first, just like we learned, do an equal to sum, type it in, and select this. Click enter. That's the sum of Sam's total. And actually drag that down and get their total sum for each salesperson. Yeah, that's straightforward and easy. And also we have here the total sales in this column. This complete equal to sum. Okay, we can use here, or we can use here. Any of them gives the same. So we have 213,610 as total sales. Then what we need to find next is the average sales. So what do we need to do now? Our average weekly sales, I think. Average weekly sales. Click on here, do average weekly sales. What we need to find out here is for each of the salesperson for each week. So we do an average, tap it, then we select the average of each weekly sales. This is what we want. We have 8,900 as the average. So the max sales, I think we learn minimum and maximum in our formulas. I think I skipped that. So minimum, we saw that in the other explanation we did. So let me add here, insert, shift down. Okay, let me add minimum, maximum. So min is the minimum value, min function. Thought I explained that here, sorry. Min function, it returns the smallest number in a set of values. Tap it in. Let's do the min of this place. Yeah, it gives us 5,500. 550 is the mean. Look at here. See, the smallest number is 550 here. And so, yeah. So the max is tap. Is the max of this enter. Max is 21200. So let's select this. This looks uniform, bold on it. Okay, the max is 212. I think that max is taking Yep, this is the max 212 for salaries. 2120, so that's the maximum value. Let's select this and put it in bracket. It's okay. Pretty much like that is fine. Then that's what we'll do here too. For the maximum cells, do equal to max of these maximum weekly cells. Enter, Ctrl Z, sorry. That's not what we want. Selecting equals to max. Supposed to return just one value. Yep. Gives us this as for the maximum 11,200, which is here. That's the maximum. That's in week 3. The highest sales was 11,200 from Mary. Same with the minimum. Minimum sales. Select from here. Enter 5,900, which is from Joe on week 1. Yeah, we'll do the count of sales. How many sales did we have in total? Week 1, how many? Week 2, how many? So we'll do count. You can see we're pretty much using all the functions we learned, both the basics and so there the count is not supposed to be in dollars, so remove the currency, just give it in numbers. Yep, so that's for the count of sales. So we've actually finished this, but this is where it gets tricky to answer the question. So the manager now asks, was this goal met? Was it not met? Based on this, so you can see the monthly goal is stated here, 35,000. Now, how many people met this goal? This is where we use the if function. This is where we use the if function. So you can say, was this goal met? And do if this, which is the person's sales, we put the logical cell in the test, is greater than this. So the criteria is for goal to be met, look at here, put pass for each person's, for each person's salesperson that surpassed the monthly goal, would fail if they didn't. So this is I didn't explain this. This is the task you are following. This is the task you are following. We've got the totals. Get the totals of each salesperson, which we did. Now we ask, was the goal met? Was the goal met? So we have to check now, is this person's totals greater than the monthly goal? If it's greater than, you put pass. If it is not, you put fail. So our logical test will be, is total sales greater than the monthly goal? Yeah, that's the question we're asking. If it's true, what do we put? Pass. If it's not true, what do we put? Fail. Then we close our brackets, click enter. We show that sum actually passed its monthly goal. It's easy as that. As easy as that. Next person is Joe, but for we having for some already, we can actually use that to populate for every other person. But when we are populating, we should mind something. We should mind something. You can see when it comes to Joe didn't pass because Joe had 31 and the monthly goal is 35. But because we just dragged it down, it's giving us a pass here. Why? Because it has shifted from the logical test. If you look at the formula here, it's now referencing I3, which is an empty place. So what we need to do is we go back to our here, and since our monthly goal is in one place, we lock it to that place with an absolute F4. Enter. So now we can drag it down. This gives us the true value. This gives us the true value. I think I should reduce this to a color that can make it easier to see. Yeah, so you don't get confused. Now let's give it another color. Yep. In case the red is too shouty, your eyes. Okay, so for Joe now, you can see Joe had 31. He failed to meet his goal. And Chris failed. Mary surpassed the goal, so you see pass. Alex 33 failed. John 37 passed. So that's where we use our if statement. That's one of the places we use our if statement. The second part is the bonus. The bonus states that if they pass the goal, add 5% to their totals. What it means is we are giving 5% bonus based on their sales if any to anyone that passed the goal. How do we do this? What do we use? We now have to use we still use our if statement. But the if statement we are using here now is we are going to add a condition. What is the condition? Say equal to if logical test is, let's use pass and fail. If this is equal to pass, if H5 is equals to pass, then give the person 5%. 5%. Let's try 5% times your total. That's the value if true. If it's not, what do you do? Just put fail again. Or let's say no bonus. Yeah, that's also put no bonus. Okay, let's see. So that's it. We see that Sam passed the monthly goal, so it's given 5% of his total, which is the bonus amount. So the bonus amount of Sam is $1,812 because of our total sales was greater, had to be greater. So I had to check it again. So you have to be very careful with numbers when you're working in analysis, so you know where there's an issue somewhere, or maybe where you've missed one thing or the other. Yep, that's good. That's our bonus amount. Then the last thing we're going to look at is the department bonus. Now there is a criteria that does department as a whole get a bonus? What's the criteria? Department as a whole must have total sales of at least 200,000, which is here, and an average 9,000 or more per week. Yeah. So for department to have a bonus, this has to be the total sales has to be 213 and an average sales has to be 9,000. Looking at it already, we can see that the department will not have a bonus, but we cannot just say that. We have to let's prove it with the functions. So we go down here, click equal to. We use our if and. This is where we use our if and, because we are looking at if this is greater than 200,000 and this is also greater than this, then the both condition must be true for it to give us a true. So we use an if and function. If this is greater than 200,000, and this is greater than 9,000, then give us a yes bonus. So give us a yes, else give us a no. Okay, that's how it works. Close, enter. So you see it's a no. Why? Because one of the criteria was not met. This is greater than 200,000, no doubt here, but this average is less than 9. So because of that, we have a no. So that's how we've used our basic functions right from when we started with the sum, count, average, max, mean. Saw how we used how we did our basic operations with strings. So how we did our division, our sum ifs, count ifs, average ifs, and all the rest. Then we see how we used it in doing analysis, and also how we used it in doing another analysis. So I know this must have taught you a lot. You can go over it slowly to understand these basic functions. They will always come in handy in your data analysis journey. And want you to like and comment on this video. If you have not, drop a comment. Let me know where you got confused. I can explain it better. You can share knowledge. And let me know what kind of videos I can be sharing with you. Thank you. This is my Excel tutorial. See you